poetry. Yes. I love poetry. Loved poetry. And I remember I was young. And I was smart. And I was hungry. I'm hungry now. But really, really hungry. What was I? Oh! I was young. I was 15 years old. I was 15 years old, and I was reading a poem about the sea the moment my life changed. When they came to bring me across the sea to England. That's right. I loved poetry, and oh, how strange that poetry has come to define me. But perhaps that's why you're here. That's how you know me. You! Do you know me? Do you know me? Do you know me? Yes? No. Poetry is what's brought me here today. To stand here before you, whoever you are, and show you the events of my life. Yes. Now I remember perfectly. I was 15 years old. I was 15 years old. My handmaiden appeared at the door, and I knew it was time to go. I calmly stood, carrying my book of poems, and as I descended the stone steps, I remember thinking, I hope I don't get seasick. Be thou what thou wilt, thou art my prisoner. Be thou what thou wilt, thou art my prisoner, Suffolk says to me. No, that isn't. Well, the events of that day were not an attack, nor a siege, nor even a surprise, as the playwright suggests. On the contrary, at 15 years old, I was a young woman prepared to meet my destiny, to shape it, even. This is... Well, I suppose if he had told my story the way it really happened, he would have had to title the plays differently. Margaret, my name, and daughter to a king. The King of Naples, to be more specific. Entitled King of Jerusalem and Aragon, which includes Sicily, Majorca, and Corsica. Duke of Anjou, Lorraine, and Bar, Count of Piedmont and Provence. My mother, the Queen of Naples and Duchess of Lorraine, and I, their daughter, a princess much beloved, known in the province for my beauty and intelligence, quick-witted refuser of unfancied suitors. Oh yes, King Henry was not my first proposal. Here, on this bright spring morning in the Abbey of Beaumont-le-Duc, the Earl of Suffolk stands before me, sent all the way from England by King Henry to pay me queenly homage for his subjects. Say, Earl of Suffolk, if thy name be so, what ransom must I pay before I pass? For I perceive I am thy prisoner. Why speakst thou not?
Madam, I have a secret to reveal.
What? Though I be enthralled! He seems a knight, and will not anyway dishonor me. Now, nice and loud so everyone can hear you.
Say, gentle princess, Would you not suppose your bondage happy to be made a queen?
To be a queen in bondage is more vile than is a slave in base servility. Oh, okay. So now, in the play, I hope this is the right one. In the play, you're completely enamored with me. So, just some backstory for you. Just be enamored with me. Okay? Nice and loud.
I'll undertake to make thee Henry's queen, and set a precious crown upon thy head, if thou wilt condescend to be my...
What?
His love.
His love. If I will condescend to be the king's love. See, he meant to say his love, but he slipped and said my love. You understand. And here is where, according to the playwright, I fall in love with my captor. For a good play needs conflict. And what better subplot than a forbidden romance? Farewell, my lord. Good wishes, praise, and prayers shall Suffolk ever have of Margaret.
No loving token to his majesty?
Yes, my good lord. A pure, unspotted heart. Never yet taint with love. I send the king. Oh.
And this withal.
The bard would have you kiss me. And why not? How could he resist? I was a treasure, a ripe virgin in the prime of my youth. A little too eager to venture forth unto the court, and to be courted, too. Surely there is no harm in poetic romance, some of which we'll hear tonight. We might as well enjoy it, right? I did love Suffolk. I cared for him, as anyone would the person offering protection on a strange journey to a foreign land. He and his wife would become loyal friends to me in the coming years, but you must understand, on the other side of that journey, I was being offered a kingdom. I thought it fitting in my girlhood that I should aspire to womanhood, seated in the throne of Henry's heart, that I, Margaret of Anjou, should rule beside him. My young mind did not shy away from the likelihood of great influence. I assure you, King Henry was the man I longed to see. Great King of England and my gracious Lord, the mutual conference that my mind hath had by day, by night, waking and in my dreams, in courtly company or at my beads, with you, mine alder-leafest sovereign, makes me the bolder to salute my king with ruder terms, such as my wit affords and overjoy of heart doth minister.
Long live Queen Margaret, England's happiness!
Long live Queen Margaret, England's happiness! Long live Queen Margaret, England's happiness!
England's happiness! They certainly greeted me happily when I made my state entrance by barge into London, showered with daisies which were called marguerites. Pulled in a chariot by 2 white horses, I was a goddess, immortal, intoxicated by the greatness that was promised me, Henry gifted me a ruby ring set and a fully grown lion. The English loved a spectacle. I was in raiment and ceremony unquestionably queen. But the negotiations surrounding my marriage had not yet been finalized. My father, with all his titles, had suffered many losses in the 100 Years' War. And it was agreed that in exchange for the betrothal, my family's lost territories in France would be returned. I was a peace offering. Of little value to the English, who fought alongside King Henry V once more into the breach. I'm sure you've heard of him. When a French envoy arrived in court, demanding England uphold its end of the bargain, Gloucester, Henry's uncle, did not hide his disdain for me. He had served as Lord Protector and proxy to the king since Henry's coronation at 9 months old. And now, the lands his countrymen died for were being offered freely in exchange for me. My Lord of Suffolk, say, is this the guise? Is this the fashion in the court of England? What, shall King Henry be a pupil still under the surly Gloucester's governance? Am I a queen in title and in style, and must be made a subject to a duke? I tell thee, sir, when in the city tours thou ranst a tilt in honor of my love, and stolest away the ladies' hearts of France, I thought King Henry had resembled thee in courage, courtship, and proportion. All his mind is bent on holiness, to number Ave Marys on his beads. I would the college of the cardinals would choose him pope and carry him to Rome, and set the triple crown upon his head. That were a state fit for his holiness. Beside the haughty protector, have we Beaufort, the imperious churchman, Somerset, Buckingham, and grumbling York. And not the least of these, but can do more in England than the king. Not all these lords do vex me half so much as that proud dame, the Lord Protector's wife. She sweeps it through the court with troops of ladies. Eleanor, strangers in court, do take her for the queen. She bears a duke's revenues on her back, and in her heart she scorns our poverty. Shall I not live to be avenged on her? Contemptuous, base-born callet as she is. She vaunted mongst her minions t'other day, the very train of her worst wearing gown was better worth than all my father's lands, till Suffolk gave 2 dukedoms for his daughter. From the time I entered court, Suffolk's politics aligned with my best interest. He remained loyal to me, and more than that, he admired me, which was more than I could say for Henry. Seven years passed, and we remained childless. A riddle. What is more despised than a traitor, more mocked than a fool, and more scrutinized than a pious king? Everyone had their eyes on me. Gloucester was second in line to the throne, and I knew that York, along with his sons, had been biting at the heels of the king's rights behind closed doors, though in outward show, they were still our allies. I even heard rumors of an astronomer and a cleric in court who, along with Margaret of Jordan, known as the Witch of Eye, were accused of making a wax figure of the king and casting a horoscope that predicted his death. Marjorie was well known for procuring spells and potions that could draw forth life into an empty womb. Even I had toyed with the idea of seeking her magic to help me Gloucester's wife was caught fraternizing with Marjorie and sentenced to perpetual imprisonment. Sad, really, that her desperation to produce an heir led to her downfall. Soon after, whispers of treason began to surround the Lord Protector. And who's to blame me if I contributed to those whispers? I was determined that I would not let my childlessness prevent me from safeguarding Henry's claim. And if the king wouldn't take action to defend us, either in the marriage chamber or otherwise, then I would. My sovereign lord, can you not see, or will ye not observe with what a majesty he bears himself? How insolent of late he's become, how proud, how peremptory, and unlike himself. Small curs are not regarded when they grin, but great men tremble when the lion roars. And Gloucester is no little man in England. First note that he is near you in descent, and should you fall, he as the next will mount. Now 'tis the spring, and weeds are shallow-rooted. Suffer them now, and they'll o'ergrow the garden, and choke the herbs for want of husbandry. I found that nothing could force Henry to act apart from his own free will. Sometimes, though we try, we cannot conjure from a man the thing we wish he was. No, nothing would force him to act. Oh, except, of course, his trusted advisors. My Lord of Suffolk, Buckingham, and York. Cold snow melts with the sun's hot beams. Henry, my lord, is cold in great affairs, too full of foolish pity, and Gloucester's show beguiles him, as the snake rolled in a flowering bank with shining checkered slough doth sting a child. Believe me, lords, were none more wise than I, and yet herein I judge mine own wit good. This Gloucester should be quickly rid the world, to rid us of the fear we have of him. Murder? Murderer. I don't pretend to you or to myself that I lived a perfect life, but murderer? Here, he takes it too far. The king, at the urging of his courtiers and with little regard for my advisement, accused Gloucester of treason, and he died in prison a few days later. Henry was bereft. He loved his uncle. Even when he gave the sentence, he still loved him, despite Eleanor's disloyalty and Gloucester's cruelty towards me. It hurt him to do it. When we received word of his death, he showed more emotion than I had ever seen him show, even on our wedding day. Especially on our wedding day. I had tried so hard to love him. From the moment I knew I'd be his wife, I prepared myself to be the queen he needed, to give him my affection and my loyalty, to gain his trust. He was my king. What? Dost thou turn away and hide thy face? I am no loathsome leper. Look on me. Is all thy comfort shut in Gloucester's tomb? Why then Dame Margaret was ne'er thy joy. Was I for this, nigh wrecked upon the sea? And twice, by awkward wind from England's banks, drove back again unto my native clime? The pretty vaulting sea refused to drown me, knowing that thou wouldst have me drowned on shore, with tears as salt as sea, through thy unkindness. I stood upon the hatches in the storm, and when the dusky sky began to rob my earnest gaping sight of thy land's view, I took a costly jewel from my neck. A heart it was, bound in with diamonds, and threw it toward thy land. The sea received it, and so I wished thy body my heart. I can no more. Die, Margaret, for Henry weeps that thou dost live so long. And weep he did, and rage in the quiet, manipulative way he raged. He exiled Suffolk. I know before I mocked the bard's portrayal of this fabricated love affair between myself and Suffolk. It bothers me that as a young girl, that's all he could come up with to motivate my ambitious behavior. But as I've gotten older, as I remember everything, I begin to realize that no words that I could conjure from the tomes of my memory could capture the depth of sorrow I experienced. Saying goodbye to my dearest friend. Oh, let me entreat thee, cease. Give me thy hand, that I may dew it with my mournful tears. Nor let the rain of heaven wet this place to wash away my woeful monuments. Oh, could this kiss be printed in thy hand, that thou mightst think upon these by the seal, through whom 1,000 sighs are breathed for thee. Go, speak not to me, even now be gone. Oh, go not yet! Even thus two friends condemned embrace and kiss and take 10,000 leaves, loather 100 times to part, then die. During his journey to exile, Suffolk was captured and murdered by pirates on the sea. They sent his head. I held it in my hands. I looked down at Suffolk's face. The deep scar by his left eyebrow. The dark lashes, the strong jaw that now hung lackluster from the top of his skull, and I understood, for the first time, the real danger of this world I inhabited. This England, this court, this crown, the crown they crowned me with, that held me hostage, turned my own power against me. I thought, perhaps now is the time to back down, to shut my mouth, to make myself smaller than Henry. And then, a miracle. own red rose, my Edward, Henry's only heir. My hopes, my dreams, my joys, all my ambitions, my worthiness restored to me. In the innocent face of my son. In the year following Edward's birth, Henry's mind began to deteriorate. He was prone to bouts of forgetfulness, failing for months to legitimize our son, to recognize me, or even his most trusted friends. Our court was fertile ground for the ambitions of York and his sons, Edward, George, Richard, and young Rutland, to take root. I was not granted regency, unfit, they said, in my delicate condition. The Yorks did not hesitate, striking against our army at the Battle of Wakefield, where we suffered a humiliating defeat. Perhaps it was the king's delicate condition that caused him to so willingly surrender our son's inheritance. For the promise of peace during his lifetime, Henry agreed that York's eldest son would be granted succession of the English throne after his death. And Edward, for Edward, what's the difference? Their fathers both originated from the same pallid English bloodline. But my blood ran hot and French, ran boldly through my Edward's veins. I would not let them win without a fight. Nay, go not from me, Henry. I will follow thee. Oh, wretched man. Would I had never seen thee, never borne thee sons, seeing thou hast proved so unnatural a father. Hadst thou but loved him half so well as I, or felt that pain which I did for him once, or nourished him as I did with my blood, thou wouldst have left thy dearest heart blood there, rather than have that savage duke thine heir, and disinherited thine only son. Enforced thee? Art thou king, and wilt be forced? Ashamed to hear thee speak. Oh, timorous wretch! Thou hast undone thyself, thy son, and me, and given unto the house of York such head as thou shalt live, but by their sufferance, to entail him and his heirs unto the crown. What is it but to make thy sepulchre, and creep into it far before thy time? Now York is made protector of the realm, and yet shalt thou be safe? Such safety finds the trembling lamb environed with wolves. No, had I been there, which am a silly woman, the soldiers should have tossed me on their pikes before I should have granted to that act. But thou preferst thy life before thine honor. And seeing thou dost, I here divorce myself, both from thy table, Henry, and thy bed, until that act of Parliament be repealed whereby my son is disinherited. I marched north to gather forces, and with my army struck back, victorious, against the Yorkist troops. The brutality of childbirth made me more ferocious than any man on the field. The tearing of the flesh, the bearing down of weight upon the pelvis, the tiny, straining spine, unfurling from the depths of all creation, within my body. My son was not merely my son. He was my whole self, my purpose, my country, France, and England, my heart outside my body. And here was York, who for years had tried to usurp my child's right and expected my compliance. And now I had him. Come! Make him stand upon this molehill here that wrought at mountains with his outstretched arm, yet parted but the shadow with his hand. What? Is it England's king? It's you that reveled in our parliament and made a preachment of your high descent. Where are your mess of sons to back you now? The wanton Edward and the lusty George. And where's that valiant crook-backed prodigy, Dickie, your boy, that with his grumbling voice was wont to cheer his dad in mutinies? Or with the rest? Where is your darling Rutland? Look, York. I stained this napkin with the blood that valiant Clifford from his rapier's point made issue from the bosom of your boy. And if thine eyes can water for his death, I give thee this to dry thy cheeks withal. What? Hath thy fiery heart so parched thine entrails that not a tear can fall for Rutland's death? Why art thou patient, man? Stamp! Rave and fret that I may sing and dance. Thou wouldst be feed, I see, to make me sport. York cannot speak unless he wear a crown. A crown for York! And lords, bow low to him. Aye, marry, sir. Now he looks like a king. As I bethink me, you should not be king till our King Henry had shook hands with death. And will you pale your head in Henry's glory and rob his temples of the diadem now in his life? Against your holy oath? Oh, 'tis a fault too unpardonable. Off with the crown, and with the crown, his head. And whilst we breathe, take time to do him dead. Set it on York gates, so York may overlook the town of York. Many battles from that time were won and lost. 9 years of civil war. My son was raised in exile from his own country. I saw no reason to school him in the courtly manners expected of young princes, the manners that were taught to his father. He was a child of war, a boy raised in the wild by a she-wolf. When the time came at last, and he was old enough to claim his birthright by the sword, we rallied those still willing to fight in our feeble king's name. The battle was bloody. I met my son and all 3 of York's on the field. I watched him wield his sword, his every sinew buckling under the weight of the enemy's strikes. Time slowed. And I wondered what it must feel like to protect one's own body, to know that with a physical victory would come a certain reward. In that moment, his body was my body, his arms, my arms, his armor, my armor, and I heard his voice, his cherished voice, my voice, rise above the clamor. Speak like a subject, proud, ambitious York. Suppose that I am now my father's mouth, lascivious Edward. And thou, perjure George, and thou, misshapen Dick. I tell thee all. I am your better, traitors as ye are, and thou usurpst my father's right and mine. My father's right and mine. My father's right and mine. Ned? Sweet Ned, speak to thy mother, boy. Canst thou not speak? Oh! Traitors! Murderers! What's worse than murderer that I may name it? No. My heart will burst, and if I speak, and I will speak so that my heart may burst! if you ever chance to have a child, look in his youth. To have him so cut off as deathman, you have rid this sweet young prince. Then they retreated toward a horizon obscured with the stenchy fog of death. I heard Edward sigh, and Clarence cry. But I caught Richard's eye, and he was smiling. Thou elvish, marked, abortive, rooting hog, thou that wast sealed in thy nativity, the slave of nature, and the son of hell, thou slander of thy mother's heavy womb, thou loathed issue of thy father's loins, thou rag of honor, thou detested! My son is dead. My husband, dead. They killed him in the tower. And with him, all the hopes that carried me that bright spring morning when I left my home, left my family, left my youth behind on French soil, and gave myself to England. For what did I give myself? For love? For respect? For power? All these dreams I grasped at slipped through my very fingers with the men I called my own. Now buried, vanished, dust. I retired destitute to France. A hateful, withered hag. A foul, wrinkled witch. I don't doubt that's what they thought of me. In those final days, I was so tired. Oh, more weary than I thought was possible. The weariness of one who has spent her life shouting into a storm, believing that someone would finally hear her. I don't believe they heard me in my lifetime. But the playwright did not relegate me to a quiet French demise to live out my final days in isolation. In his story, I haunted the corridors of the murderer's court to lay down my burdens at the feet of my sister enemy, Elizabeth. The queen who unseated me. I had an Edward till a Richard killed him. I had a Harry till a Richard killed him. Thou hadst an Edward till a Richard killed him. Thou hadst a Richard till a Richard killed him. Thou hadst a Clarence too. And Richard killed him. Richard yet lives. Hell's black intelligencer. But at hand, ensues his piteous and unpitied end. Earth gapes, hell burns, fiends roar. called thee then, vain flourish of my fortune. I called thee then, poor shadow, painted queen, a presentation, but what I was, a mother only mocked with 2 sweet babes, a dream of what thou wert, a breath, a bubble, a queen in jest, only to fill the scene. Where is thy husband now? Where be thy brothers? Where are thy children? Wherein dost thou joy? Who sues to thee and cries, God save the queen? Where are the thronging troops that followed thee? Decline all this and see what now thou art. For happy wife, a most distressed widow, for joyful mother, one that wails the name, for queen, a very caitiff crowned with cares, for one being feared of all, now fearing one, for one commanding all, obeyed of none. Thus hath the course of justice wheeled about and left thee but a very prey to time, having no more but thought of what thou wert, to torture thee the more, being what thou art. Thou didst usurp my place, and dost thou not usurp the just proportion of my sorrow? Now, my proud neck bears half thy burdened yoke, the which, even here, I slip my weary neck, and leave the burden of it all on thee. I don't want my legacy to be pain. Pain passed down through generations of women, repurposed and retold. But there is pain. That much is clear. I was lucky. Not everyone gets 4 plays. In poetry, my truth survives. Men may try to rewrite our lives, to silence us. To destroy our very existence. But our truth is indestructible. The playwright has his place. and I have spoken for myself. And now, a reading. Who wants to read the whole play? Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy lives and planning to come tonight. It really, truly means so much to me, and thank you for, what's the word? I can't think of any more words. The words. Thank you for humoring me. That was the self-deprecating word I wanted to use. And letting me do my thing that I like to do and just kind of like try it out. I really appreciate it. And I just want to thank Narea, who directed me, and I want to thank Kate, who she composed all the music, and I called her and it was like a week of time to compose, and then she like went abroad and then came back and rehearsed for 3 days, and then amazing. So anyway, I'm grateful. I'm not going to keep you too long. I just want to say, you all know this, and you all, I'm sure, already have one, but I just want to remind everyone to make a plan to vote. And also, because I've been very wrapped up in trying to get this ready for everybody and trying to feel comfortable, and obviously just spending a lot of time focusing on this. But now I'm kind of, after tomorrow night, I'm going to shift gears for the rest of the month. My goal is to really try to find like some opportunities to phone bank and canvas and just like volunteer. So if anyone is like, oh, I really want to do that, but I need like an accountability person, please reach out to me. I'm sure you all have my information, or you can find me on Instagram, and just seriously send me a message. And I would like to, I also need accountability. So I just wanted to offer that to you all, and say that it'd be great to have a team do some phone calls or something just over the next couple of weeks so that we can save the world. Okay, great. Thank you. One more thing. I think that I'm going to go to the Half King after this. If anyone wants to hang out, we can also discuss it, but that was what I was thinking. So.